So for anyone discovering your work for the first time, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Tony Njoku. I'm a young immigrant from Nigeria who just has a desire to live a creative life.
We're at Ladbroke Hall for a playback of your new EP. What made this feel like the right place to share this project?
Well, I have grown up a northwest Londoner, and from my time, I know before me there was a lot of activity in like West London, but from my time, everything's kind of southeast or East London, and I kind of feel it's just nice to bring more people to this side of London, honestly. And it's a gorgeous place, right?
It's really, it was like the first floor. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. It's a beautiful place, and it's it's like a nice hidden gem over here.
You've described a world of bodies on fire as taking shape from burnout and a need to move through difficult emotions. Listening to it after experiencing Conjuring, they feel like two different forms of catharsis, one more personal and the other collective. How do the two projects inform one another? And is that something you've consciously thought about?
No, I really try to steer away from any conscious thought when it comes to my practice now. I've done a lot of the kind of R&D, and especially with this year, it's more just activity, just getting into it. But they, when I think about them, they do obviously feed each other. One, it's both stem from my creativity, not just mine, but I'm definitely a part of both of them. And one of my kind of resolute words for the year has been improvisation, and they both stem from my kind of improvised practice, which is pretty much like being a sort of consistent aspect of my practice since I began. It's like this element of like surprising myself and going in blind and not, I really try not to think too much and just go in. And that's like, that's where I get the most truth from. That's where I kind of get the most surprised and excited. And so, yeah.
This EP feels very focused on its instrumentation, with piano and synth taking such a central role. Were there particular sounds, textures, or musical ideas that became central to the identity of the record as it developed?
Well, this just feels like a kind of... The EP is pretty much just an extension of my... what I've been doing, right? So I kind of took on the piano, I think about, 4 years ago now? Is when I really started being serious with piano work. And that's just become a mainstay in like my practice and how I operate. I love the sound of the piano. I also like the idea of trying to decolonize the piano, and even though I am using a lot of Western-centric musical ideas, I'm trying to sort of bring it away from that and put it in a more sort of unusual environment, so that's like been a mainstay. And the synth is it's basically what I use for my live set. I set it up and I just improvised and kind of got to the end product through that.
I really love the organ pedal, like with the minute.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. The organ thing was just a necessity thing, because it's like, okay, I'm doing like this sort of mid frequency, high frequency pad work with the sledge and the deep mind and the Juno, and then I just needed a lot of low end, and I only got two hands, so it made sense to get something to play with my feet. And also I've seen other sort of like synth lords do it, like Rick Wakeman and like Nils Fram, and those are the kind of people I've stolen from and emulated to kind of get to my own version of things.
So are there any composers or artists whose work that you found yourself returning to while making this EP, even if those influences aren't immediately obvious?
Yeah. It's great. I love it. Do you know what? Because this happened so quick. This was like a real emotional response to just where I was at. I just needed to kind of blow off some steam. So I wasn't really listening to anything specific. It wasn't, like I said, there wasn't a lot of R&D, going into creating this. It was really spur of the moment, and which I love. But when I think about it, I mean, this is influences that have like been a part of me since day one, whether it's like One Tricks Point Never or Aphex or more unusual ones like Raymond Scott or Laurie Spiegel, Raichi Sakamoto. There's so many of these kind of auteurs, I'll call them auteurs. They kind of paint these amazing pictures and have very distinct sounds. But, they're just distilled through me naturally. That's not like I'm not, actively thinking, that's like, it's just like the people in my playlists, basically, and like I mentioned, like Nils Fram and what was the other guy I mentioned? Rick Wakeman, and there's so many. It's an endless list of influences for sure.
Conjuring has now reached its 4th edition with a return later this year, which we're all excited about. I mean, the last one was really great.
Thank you so much.
When you look back at its inception, what has surprised you the most about how it's evolved?
I mean, just the potential for like what collaboration can bring, like musically. Finding our feet with the first one, that went amazing too. I mean, but also when you're in the company of great musicians, it's like, it's gonna be good, and the quality of musicianship has been fantastic. And what I love is that it feels very organic, even though there's a lot of electronic elements, it all feels very organic. It all really feels like improv and in the moment, it's like, that is very exciting to me. But even in that, it doesn't feel amateurish. It doesn't feel labored. It just, it flows so well. And it, for me and like my community, I personally thought it was important for it not to feel like jazz improv or sort of traditional classical improv. Is like, this is very much its own thing. And there's, like the last one was very drone heavy, ambient. The one before that was kind of like, had a lot of krautrock elements and, just groovy and, dynamic, stuff that I did not expect. So I've been surprised by it all and very, very excited for it to continue.
What's the date for the next one?
We don't have it yet. We're still trying to figure out a lot of things, but it's definitely coming. We're definitely going to do it, and we're planning a lot of really interesting things for next year too. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Are there particular improvisers or even ways of thinking about improvisation that have fundamentally changed how you listen?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to someone the other day about like some of my favorite players. I'm a big Radiohead fan, so I love watching Johnny play live. But there's something that is very loud. There's something I love. The thing I really love about his playing is like, even though he's like technically phenomenal, he always plays as if he's coloring out the lines, right? So there's like this, there's a bit of lag in how he plays, or there's a bit of like extraness. It's that it just feels a little just off kilter, and good example is like the stuff he did on the One Battle After Another soundtrack, or like a track like Identikit on A Moonshaped Pool, and how he does his like guitar solo. It's just a little bit, not all over the place, but just out of bounds. And the way I think about that playing is the way I think about improv, and what the power of improv can be is this, kind of coloring out the lines, but doing so with enough technical prowess to kind of reel the listener in still and convey something unique, I guess. So that's just something I've been thinking about recently. Of like, and he's like an amazing example of that. Another one, maybe it's like, even though this wasn't improv per se, but like D'Angelo's Voodoo album, a lot of the grooves are very like, it feels so tight, but it's so loose at the same time. It's something, it's like the contradiction of that is something I'm really excited, enthralled by, and when thinking about improv, it's like that's the kind of goal as well. It's like, how do you do something that feels like you've rehearsed it a million times, but it's still as loose and free, That's the goal.
I could definitely hear that in the kind of Conjuring stuff.
Yeah, you know, and I guess because we have like the sort of beginning point. Okay, there's a motif, there's an idea, there's a chord progression or a key that we're in. So that kind of gives us a little bit of a push, maybe. But yeah, there's something in there where it's like, it feels like you're listening to a band who's rehearsed what's being played, but it's like, yeah, you know, I like that juxtaposition.
You've been a part of London's experimental music community for a number of years now. What do you think has remained constant, and what continues to excite you about it?
I mean, the constant is just like there is ultimately just a lot of desire. Oh, that spider just caught one. Sorry, yeah, that he just caught one. Nice, caught one fly. Do you know what? London just has. There's just never a shortage of like amazing musicians doing genuinely fresh things, you know. And there's a lot of people that do interesting things, but it's very seldom, you know, where you find like people doing like, okay, this is genuinely fresh. And also like one thing I love about the experimental scene here is there's no shying away from kind of like pop centric ideas either. There's not that like you know, London has its thing with like hierarchies or whatever, but there's not like a sort of like separation between what happens in the experimental world with the pop world. It like, you know, it interlinks, and yeah, you know, people flow between them a lot, and I really like that. I really like that freedom, you know, to be able to just be like, today it's going to be the most bizarre, you know, thing. I saw someone do like a drill orchestra, but like literal drills, right? Okay. You know, which was very interesting. I saw that at Cafe Otto, and then I saw some of those same people in like it was like a whole other, you know, just like a more pop centric thing. It was classical, but it was more like kind of traditional. And I was like, yeah, this is completely. It's amazing to see the same people live in both universes, you know. Yeah, that's my favorite thing about the experimental scene, I guess.
As a recommendation platform, we like to ask if there are any smaller artists / contemporaries you think deserve more attention.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, the last Conjuring had like, you know, Afroma and Abi Sisa and Damsel Elysium, Lara Aisha. You know, I just think those guys are phenomenal. I think they're superstars, honestly. And I've got, you know, gotten to hear a lot of the stuff that they're working on for the future. You know, I can't wait for other people to hear. Are there other artists that I can think of? Is this a band that they're not UK, but I think they're based between Switzerland and Berlin. They're called Minwa, and it's all like woodwinds and guitars. And they're also improvisers, but like they do these amazing sort of textural kind of legato-based like woodwind arrangements. You know, I think they have like a series called Bodies of Water, and it's like 3 EPs or maybe 2 EPs, and yeah, it's just phenomenal. I listen to them a lot, and that's Minwa, and Minua. And yeah, but you know, there's so many. I was just in Brussels and met a bunch of really cool. They have an amazing scene there. There's a lot of people doing, you know, a lot of black experimental artists doing just fantastic things there. I was really like enthralled by that scene too. Like, love, you know, the queer scene there. Yeah. Anyway, lots of great people.
Any final words of wisdom?
Anything, words of wisdom. I mean, I don't really see myself as a wise person. I just, you know, I'm very serious about like the work I do. I'm very dedicated to it, and I put everything. I put 110,000% in what I do, and even especially in the uncertain moments, which I've had plenty of uncertainty, whether in the personal life or even in the creative endeavors. But one thing I know is leaning in always yields like good results. So I always try and just lean into the work, lean into the whatever my heart is calling for, doing the thing, being a little outrageous, being a little obnoxious, being a little bit, you know, coloring out the lines, you know, lean in and color outside the lines. That's my words of wisdom.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
My absolute pleasure, man. This has been sweet, and yeah, nice to meet you guys. Huh?